Welcome to WeAreSC and Five Things. This is Erik McKinney, joined as always by Katz and Marc Kulkin, and we are talking five things from USC 45, Arizona 37. A road win for USC, and Lincoln Riley said meant as much as any win that they've had all season. And we'll get into, I think, a lot of why he said that and kind of circumstances around there. So we'll start with our first thing. And Greg, we'll go to you. First thing, player of the game for you, Greg.
Slam dunk, Caleb Williams, flat out, was magnificent. I think he reestablished his credentials for a Heisman Trophy run. That's not to say he's going to get it, but he certainly should get sent an invitation to New York for that. I mean, 411 yards, 5 TDs, no interceptions, no fumbles. He was magnificent. I don't know what more he could have done. Period.
Marc, player of the game.
Yeah, Caleb Williams. What more he could have done, it would have made him perfect, but that would be just better decision making when he's under pressure. Other than that, I'm just going to move on. Caleb Williams, 400 yards passing, career high, 5 touchdown passes, and he was doing it. He was doing it without his top 2 targets out there, joining him. So to be able to spread the love around with Kyle Ford and Taj Washington, and among everybody else, Caleb Williams, hands down.
And that's what stands out to me without his top 2 passers. And I'm going to make it 3 for 3 Caleb Williams, but I'm going to, and 10 touchdown passes, oh, by the way, combined against Utah and now Arizona back-to-back games. I'm going to go and talk a little bit about Taj Washington and Kyle Ford. And no, Caleb Williams is the player of the game, I think, for all of us. But those 2 guys, the way they stepped up, both of them go over 100 yards receiving. Kyle Ford catches his first touchdown pass of the season. Taj Washington catches his first touchdown pass of the season. And he has 2, the first time he's had 2 in one game at USC. First time Taj Washington has had a 100-yard receiving day at USC here too. And I think the way Taj Washington set the tone so early, 5 catches in that first quarter, Kyle Ford sort of did it all game long. They came up big when USC really needed receivers to step up. So those 2 guys, again, I think share some love there in that player of the game conversation. But Caleb Williams, I mean, like you said, 411 yards, 5 touchdown passes, completes 69% of his passes. Just a phenomenal day for Caleb Williams. And you could tell he was feeling it after the game. He wanted to play well coming off that loss, and he definitely did. Go to the second thing now. Back to you, Greg. That's the play of the game.
Well, there was a couple that kind of went bing, 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 but the one I'm picking was the first bing, and that was the third quarter interception by Ohio State transfer Bryson Shaw. 5:30 in the third quarter, they needed a huge turnover. They couldn't stop him, and he stepped right in, and I was really impressed by him, not only just on that play, but some other plays. This guy can step in. I mean, he's going to be a force. He can really read what the offense is doing. But that particular moment for me was almost a change of entire complexion of the game at the moment.
Marc, your play of the game.
I'm going to go straight to the end of the first half.
Got to be talked about. Got to be.
Points that were left on the field because the Pac-12, again, cannot get out of their own way. It's at the point now where, you can tell me I'm wearing a tinfoil hat. There is stuff going on out there that is just beyond. I mean, it's Pop Warner level officiating. They can't figure out first down, stop the clock, place the ball. You literally USC had a chance for at least a field goal, if not one play for a touchdown. They're going for the field goal, though. They don't even get that up right there. That's my play of the game, because it changes the context of the game, how you call the game, how Arizona is going to approach the second half. They got the ball to start the second half.
If I could just cut in, I would just like to say one thing in support of what Marc is saying, and I try not to go in, not Marc, but the direction of what I'm thinking. This idea that SC is leaving the Pac-12. And we saw that with the roughing the passer at Utah. Some of the stuff starts to add up. And I will tell you, it was so blatant at the end of the game, watching the replay of the clock running and the placement of the ball and the SC. I mean, it was absolutely astounding. And my understanding is that Mike Bone got on Twitter and just blasted him. So I'm saying, if your AD is going to get on Twitter, we'll see what fine he gets. But it was so bad, they had to pay Mike Bone for writing as opposed to fine him. It was just ridiculous.
Well, after the game, Lincoln was asked, I'm sorry, Erik. After the game, Lincoln was asked about it. He said they didn't have an explanation. But after the game, apparently, or after halftime, the officials came out and said, yeah, we screwed up. So there you have it.
Which again becomes, you're not going anywhere, right? Going into halftime, even coming out for the third quarter. Hey, let's just set the scene. Everyone's over the ball. Play that. That's the play of the game, because that's lasting conversation, what people are going to be talking about, I think, from this one. And it's just every week, right? Every week there's something with the Pac-12 officials. I'll go a different way, just so we're all talking about something different. Greg, I thought Bryson Shaw's was big. USC then goes and scores a touchdown. Then they go for an onside kick. And that, to me, is one of the plays of the game, because to that point, Arizona had scored 3 points on its previous 4 drives. They'd gone, I believe, downs, field goal, I want to say a punt, and then the interception. USC gives it back to them at the 40-yard line. They go 4 plays touchdown. Next time they get the ball, 3 plays touchdown. Like they scored and scored after that. It kind of seemed to give them some life, kept them in it, when USC's defense at that point was getting some positive results. Lincoln Riley was asked about the onside kick after, and he just said, it's part of the strategy of the game. We thought that doing that at that time would help us win. And I understand the explanation, but it didn't feel like that at the time. At least watching the game, it felt like, okay, now you just play these guys straight up. You've got their number. They're on their heels. The fans are quiet. And then you go ahead and just ride that out to a big win. That seemed to give them some life. A couple of offensive plays in there too for Arizona, but that to me was a big one. And let's face it, you can pick all of the touchdown passes. You can pick all the big plays for USC too. There were a bunch of good ones in there, but three pretty interesting ones. And for sure, the clock management at the end of the first half was it gets to the point in the press box where you just kind of look around and it's like everybody's seeing this, right? Like we're all experiencing this together. That was crazy. So
can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
It's okay. I thought that some of the onside kick was ridiculous. They needed to make him drive the field longer than that. So I'm supporting you on this. But the other thing that bothered me, since you're talking about plays of the game, at the end, the clock management issue, to me, throwing the ball deep a couple of times and not running the clock and stopping the clock. I honestly don't get it. And I would love to hear an explanation in the future of why we're not burning time at the end and stopping the clock for them. It just was bizarre to me.
And I'm always curious, because quarterbacks get and especially a guy like Caleb Williams gets to kind of call some of his own stuff if he sees things or if he does that. It does feel like occasionally that kind of 1st and 10 deep back shoulder shot down the sideline. If it works, he threw into Kyle Ford, it worked. Hey, here we go. When it doesn't work, you're right. It feels like kind of, okay, that's a big step back compared to where if the run game's working and you run for more than 200 yards against an Arizona defense that hasn't really stopped anybody yet, definitely some questions there. Third thing, moving on, and that's the expectation that we had coming into this one that was met by this game. Greg, we'll start with you.
Well, my expectations with Caleb Williams' own words that we were going to punch somebody else in the mouth. And offensively, I thought they did a really good job of it for the most part. Would have helped if we could have gotten a couple of those field goals converted. But you could argue it'd be even better if we would have gotten touchdowns converted. So my expectation is what I expected Caleb to have a big game, and he did, and he was a great leader. And he had, I think it was 16 yards net rushing, but I'll tell you what, on some of those short yardage, he put his body on the line. He went for it and took some big time shots, and credit to him for that. So he met my expectations.
Mark, go ahead, yours.
A lot of offense, a lot of fireworks. I think everyone anticipated that happening in this game. I think everyone's anticipation was met when more players weren't able to play in this game. So it just, I saw the line, and then throughout the week, I heard about who possibly could or could not play, and I was like, all right, well, this game's not going to be as easy as we thought it would be. It turned out it was a back and forth type of shootout with a little bit of help from Lincoln Riley's clock management, a little bit of weird, officiating. It turned out to be USC versus Arizona in Tucson.
Yeah. Greg, I'm right with you. Expectation was Caleb Williams was going to come in and kind of have his way with the Arizona defense that hasn't really been able to stop anybody in the conference here. But the flip side of that is, boy, I expected Jayden de Laura to be pretty darn good. And for this Arizona team, again, it's one of those things. When you're USC, you can't watch how Arizona or really any Pac-12 team has played against anybody else, because it's different. It is different when a team is hosting USC. That Arizona team came out on fire. The fans were here, all of that. Jayden de Laura played a great game, tough to sack, scrambled, kind of say, he's a little mini Caleb Williams over there. I mean, it's not, the gap is certainly there, but Jayden de Laura gives you a lot of what Caleb Williams gives you. That top three wide receiver group for Arizona, if we're matching it with USC, especially if Taj Washington is playing as well as he played tonight, I'll give the edge to USC. But Arizona's top three are very good. And certainly I'd say the second best in the conference, and maybe, depending on what's going on, maybe the first. So for them, I expected them to have a big day. And they threw for 380 yards against the USC defense that doesn't have to beat Arizona again, so they're not going to see this exact attack. But still, you got some questions for the USC defense, and that might be something that comes up here in the next couple topics. We'll go to the fourth thing now. That's our surprise for this game. Greg, we'll go back to you. What surprised you here?
Well, I was happily surprised that the SC wide receivers were so contributing throughout the game. I thought they were really tremendous. It was so good to see Bynum out there. It was so good to see Michael Jackson out there. That, the reverse was fantastic. I mean, he really showed that he can read blocks downfield. So I thought that the overall support group, even Brendan Rice, I thought did a pretty good job for the most part. So my surprise was that they were as effective as they were. Basically, it says, if you can catch it, Caleb can get it to you. And they caught it, and they deserve a lot of accolades for that.
Mark, go ahead. You're surprised from this one.
I think I was surprised that they didn't run the ball as much as they could have, considering the injuries. You think, all right, let's just shorten the game, get out of here with a win, and Arizona can't stop the run. So the fact that they ran when they wanted to instead of when they should have, that sounds weird, but it's almost like we want to do it now, so we're going to run the ball now rather than we can run it whenever we want to. That and how well the offensive line played, considering the way it was, it was a mash unit. You had Justin Diedich moving over to left guard, Jonah Monheim switching from right tackle to right guard, Mason Murphy starting and finishing the game at right tackle and looking great.
Yes.
And then you had Bobby Haskins and Cortland Ford, playing a half each because of injury. So offensive line gave up no sacks, and they played great considering everything.
And off the top, we should have, I should have gotten into that where by the way, USC played this game without Jordan Addison, without Mario Williams, without Andrew Voorhees on offense, without Eric Gentry at linebacker, without Raylan Goforth, without Corey Foreman. Like that's not a group that anyone else, maybe one or two teams in the Pac-12 can lose a group like that and still win on the road here. That's what Lincoln Riley, I think, was talking about when he says that he's so proud of this, when the officiating issue at the end of the half, but also playing without all those guys and seeing that many guys step up. And Mark, I'm going to go right with you on my surprise. I was surprised that with the wide receivers out, that they didn't go, and really with the way Arizona has given up rushing yards this year, second worst in the conference against the run in terms of yards per game coming in. that USC didn't say, yeah, we're just going to run it at you to start the game. USC finished the first half with 50 rushing yards. And clearly this was kind of by design. And again, surprised me, maybe surprised Arizona too. And that's why you do it, right? If you're a good coach, you're surprising people when you do stuff. Threw it a bunch, threw it 28 times in the first half, threw it only 17 times in the second half, ran for 160 yards, USC did in the second half. And so that was flipped for me coming in, but ultimately a good sign that USC, when they said, hey, now we want to run it, and now we're going to run the game out, that's what they were able to do. I thought it was kind of a statement, and Caleb Williams was fired up when he picked up that fourth down at the very end to win it. And you could feel like those 4 runs and getting the first down was kind of a statement, like, let's finish this off and let's get out of here. And speaking of finish it off and get out of here, we're going to go to our 5th thing. Biggest takeaway from this game, looking forward, 4 more regular season games left. USC hopes for several more after that. Greg, your biggest takeaway from this one?
Well, my biggest takeaway, aside from the circumstances of at Arizona, is their homecoming and Rob Gronkowski's doing the official coin flip, whatever. I think it's a reality check that none of these 4 games are going to be easy, just because we think that, it's the bottom rung of maybe the standings at the moment. I think that Cal showed at moments that they played early with Oregon today. I thought that, Colorado can play spirited, and you just got to come to play. I mean, I know everybody's focusing in on the last 2 games, UCLA and, Notre Dame had a big win against Syracuse. So, you know what, they're going to have to take it game by game. And my takeaway is don't count your chickens before they hatch. You got to play a game. You got to come ready to play if you want to finish the season like you have the ability to do so.
Mark, your biggest takeaway?
Yeah, this team has a lot of heart, and they care a lot. To see to watch Caleb Williams react after converting that short 4th and 1 to basically seal the game, that showed me a lot. Number one, Caleb's obviously a very emotional, passionate player, but to see the way this team was able to dig deep, and again, it sounds like a broken record, but you're playing without so many key players, and to have everyone who did play step up and meet the moment, man, that's a special thing that's hard to create, especially in year 1 with a new coaching staff and all these new players. Taj Washington said it after the game. He was asked, "Did you think about leaving when all these new receivers came in?" And ultimately, he said, "There's no other place I'd rather be right now."
Well done, Taj.
Yeah, I mean, a great game for Taj, right? He's stepped up all year with blocking and kind of making plays when he's able to, and when the spotlight was on, he showed up in a big way. My biggest takeaway for this is I've got one kind of for the rest of this season, which is there could be trouble coming. Like you keep seeing it pop up with the defense, and then if the offense kind of sputters a little bit, it's tough. That game against UCLA is going to be tough. The game against Notre Dame is going to be tough. Like you said, Greg, I mean, there's always that Pac-12 pop-up, you take a breath and then somebody trips you up, something like that. I think that you're still seeing trouble down the road here. Looking beyond that, looking at next year and 2 years and 3 years, this is one of those things, again, that shows you this program is absolutely on the right trajectory. To be able to do that, we talk about some of the transfers coming in and how quickly can they make an impact. I'm looking a little bit still at how long lasting can this impact be. And you see in games like this where it's like they understand how to play, they understand how to dig deep, they understand how to step up, they understand, everybody understands kind of how they fit. And that's something when you're building a program and rebuilding a program. And I think this is another win where you look at it and you go, they escaped, they didn't beat the spread, all that kind of stuff. And it's all true. It's all true in the immediacy. I think it's still a good sign. Mark, you mentioned, we've seen it from a few games where it's like this team is so much different than last year's team, where they can really dig down and push forward. So I still think it gives you kind of trepidation here going forward immediately, but a sense of pretty serious relief and understanding that, yeah, long term, they've got this thing going in the right direction. So again, another entertaining one for us kind of watching this thing as USC gets out of Tucson with a 45-37 win, offense everywhere for both teams. And that's our look at USC's latest victory. So for Greg Katz, for Marc Kulkin, this is Erik McKinney. Thanks for watching WeAreSC. Thanks for tuning in to 5 Things.